You are listening to GMR Radio. And now, the Great Movie Radio Show.
All right, everyone, quiet on the set. Places. We've got a show to make here. Is Chris ready? Yes. Okay, everyone, in 3, 2, 1, and... Coming to you live from sunny Orlando, Florida, it's the Great Movie Radio Show, a movie talk podcast starring Chris Schneider.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Great Movie Radio Show. This is Chris Schneider coming to you from Orlando, Florida, and I am here with Mr. JuanCarlos Padilla. Once again, welcome back to the show, JuanCarlos. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. Thanks for having me back.
Oh yeah, man. I really enjoyed our Around the Track last episode. Getting the tour guide to be able to dress up as Michael Myers and take out the gangster.
Yes.
Is probably one of the coolest ideas I have ever heard of. I'm enjoying that. Just the imagination of like, whoa, how can we do that?
How could
the
that work
setup
and all that stuff.
Oh, it's such a great idea. But I have you back so we can talk about some more of your film loves, maybe some ones you haven't seen.
Yeah.
And, just talking shop, really. You have a great list of 5 films that have inspired you beyond your favorites. I'm so happy with this first one. I'm so excited to talk to you about it. Everyone that knows me knows I love The Lord of the Rings so much. The Lord of the Rings film trilogy is in my top 5, and I say that the trilogy is a film because filmed simultaneously by Peter Jackson, and they're beautiful films, but they're just one giant film that just has a stopping point. So Warner Brothers could not make you sit through 10 to 12 hours of film. And which I've done it. I've sat through in the extended ones.
But and that's why they thought they couldn't even make that as a movie because it's such a.
But he did it.
But he did it.
Did it, and they are so phenomenal. And the score that Howard Shore did for those movies, I would love to hear why this trilogy what inspires you about it.
So when I was younger, my grandfather loved this kind of stuff. He's the influence in Star Trek for me. He loved the kind of goofy Fantasyland stuff. And we grew up watching the Hobbit cartoon.
Oh, the Ralph Bakshi.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was one of my favorite cartoons ever to watch.
Oh, it's a good one.
So we grew up watching that, so we were really big fans of Lord of the Rings in general. The reason it's an influence on my list is because I probably was one of those only kid from kindergarten up until 7th grade when the Fellowship of the Ring came out. Was that I was very consistent on what I wanted to do when I grew up. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be a police officer. Mm-hmm. And that was like the line of thought that I was going. And up until I sat in that movie theater and I watched the Fellowship of the Ring, I left that movie theater. My dad picked up me and my cousin and my sister and my little brother. And I looked at my dad and I said, Dad, I want to make movies. And from that point on, movies became my life. I didn't realize it up until that point that I was already had a love for movie. I didn't realize it until I saw Lord of the Rings, and then I started watching more movies and more movies and more movies, and started reading and doing all this stuff, and went to school for it, writing my own scripts and things like that. It was just that catalyst started from me was the Fellowship of the Ring.
I love it so much. Sorry, I think I teared up a little bit because I had a very similar moment, and I'm thinking about it so intensely. It wasn't Fellowship, it was Two Towers.
Okay.
And Two Towers is actually my number one film that inspired me beyond my favorites.
That's my favorite of the trilogy.
Return of the King is my favorite. It was so great. And it's funny, Rotten Tomatoes, just at the time of recording this, just did a poll on the best of the best pictures. and Return of the King beat out Godfather.
Yeah, I saw that.
And so Return of the King has been crowned as the best of the best pictures. So
On Rotten Tomatoes.
I was so happy. Yeah. Well, at least somebody, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was voted on by fans. So
That's
that was
crazy.
It is crazy. But Two Towers, so I grew up loving music. And I've talked about it on previous shows or episodes. I love music, and I'm a huge fan of scores and compositions. I wanted to be a film composer due to the Two Towers.
Okay.
And the scene near the end when the battle Helm's Deep is happening, and everything's looking like and we're gonna lose. Right out and meet them. Let's kick their ass, and we're just gonna go out. Yeah, exactly. I can't quote the whole thing, but. And the Red Dawn, and you have a four Faralingas, and you have Gimli, and they go out, and they just go striking, and it all looks like everything's about to go down. And then they remember Gandalf, and then he shows up at the hill, and the sun is shining. I have goosebumps while I'm saying this, man, because this is how much this...
Yeah.
And then Éomer and the Rohirrim show up, and... and then the march down the hill, and then that moment where just Howard Shore's score just goes, and you have the singers chanting, and oh my god, it was just the most. I'm sitting there like my mind is. Remember at the end of Return of the King when the tower blows up and Sauron's defeated, and everyone's like crying and amazed.
Right.
That was my face at that moment in Two Towers in the theater. Like, holy crap!
Yeah.
This is on film? Oh! And right.
Tearing up a little,
right? Exactly. So I was like, this moment is so beautiful, not just because of the visuals, but the sound and the music. And I was like, if I watched this scene on mute, I would lose all sense of emotion and how important this moment is and the turning point of this trilogy. Because that was was the moment of it's about to go down. We're coming for you.
Yeah.
And how like we have a chance in winning this. And without Howard Shore's score in that moment and everyone coming down there. And the sun blinding the orcs and just oh my god. That moment just
I had that moment with a different movie though.
Yeah.
And it was Braveheart.
Yes.
I think I talked to Will. I can't ever say his last name, but the guy who had glasses. I think that's the most perfect moment in film for me is that the ending where Robert the Bruce says, "You bled with Wallace, and I bleed with me." Yeah. And his friend comes up and he does the thing and he yells and flings the sword up, and that's when James Horner's music swells up.
Oh, Horner,
and
so
good. That camera comes in on the sword. And it lands into the ground, and they start yelling Wallace. I cry every time.
I haven't seen it in a long time. It's actually Tracy Fox was on.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah,
and she loves that movie, and we talked about it, and I forgot about that part.
That's that moment right there.
Yeah.
Theoden was always my favorite character in Lord of the Rings.
Oh, man. In Return of the King, when he was like getting them ready to march on Minas Tirith, and. The death!
That's my favorite moment in that entire trilogy is the Battle of Penethor Fields.
Oh my god.
It's such a good series. Peter Jackson did amazing.
Oh, so good.
I feel like everybody hates on his newer stuff now because...
Hey, buddy. Dexter's here. If anyone remembers Dexter, he's here. My dog. Hello, buddy.
It's all good.
Yeah.
I feel like people hold Peter Jackson up to that standard from Lord of the Rings, and they... really don't give him his just due on the stuff that he's done after the fact because they kind of have to hold it up to Lord of the Rings. Yeah. And it's not fair because he's done a lot of good things. King Kong was great.
King Kong was great. The Hobbit was the studio's turn. See, Lord of the Rings was him.
Yeah.
And the Hobbit was the studios because they were desperate. They were desperate because...
they lost Harry Potter. Harry Potter was gone.
Yeah, Harry Potter was done. And Del Toro was going to do...
The Hobbit.
Yeah. And he backed out. Peter Jackson was like, I'm not directing. And they were desperate. And then the whole screenwriting of the love story that didn't need to happen happened. And that was studio. And let's stretch it to 3 movies again so we can have the trilogy.
Yes.
It was all the studio. And
it has its moments too where I really enjoy The Hobbit.
I love the first one a lot. And I own them all. I own the extended editions, even though they were so long. I own them just because I love being taken to those places so much.
The second one is my favorite.
Oh, Desolation.
Just
Smog.
because Benedict Cumberbatch plays the most terrifying dragon. I mean, Smog was already terrifying when you read the book to begin with.
Yes, he was.
But just seeing it like that, you're just like,
I remember in the Bashki films, he looked more like a cat than a
yeah,
dragon.
yeah, no, it was, and that was I can't remember the actor's name, but he was weird.
What's
American
up, buddy?
actor.
He's terrified of Smog, is what it is. He knows.
Smog's scary.
Yeah.
It was just one of those moments in that movie where I watched it and I was like, holy crap. I've never seen this. And that's when CGI started to pick up too, where everybody's like, the CGI is getting to a point now where it was motion capture.
I remember those came out in 3D too.
Yeah. Did you see the motion capture behind the scenes of him being Smog?
Yeah.
He's on the ground and he's just
he was in it.
Yeah.
He was in it to
you
win
could
it.
see it in the performance.
And he played the Necromancer version of Sauron too, which was pretty cool because you had like this outline of him and he's just tall and menacing and it's just a ghostly outline and then you like
realize what it is.
Yeah.
So those moments, those movies just always have a special place in my heart. Again, because it stems from my grandfather who's no longer with us. And it literally changed the course of my life. So
same, man. I agree. Oh, that's why when you were saying your story, I was tearing up. I was like, me too. Oh, no. Now I kind of wish you were here for my Lord of the Rings party last year. Yeah. So next time we have one, I'll have to have you over. So we have just been joined by Mr. Jesse Techentin. Did I say it right?
Yes, you did.
Yes, awesome. He's actually going to be on a future episode with us, but he's here to record, and we're just going to kind of roundtable from here, which I've never had this for a great movie radio show, so that's kind of fun.
It's a whole big experiment.
Yeah.
Sorry for butting in on your...
No, you're good. No, you're fine.
No, this is great because I've never had multiple people for the show, and this kind of will, make it interesting in case I ever want to do like multiple recordings in the future. So, but we were just talking about 5 films that inspired JuanCarlos' life. The first one was Lord of the Rings, and we literally talked for like 10 minutes of just Lord of the Rings, and we're both crying like, "Oh, Lord of the Rings!" It's so great. The next one is Seven Samurai, which is one we were discussing on last episode with its connection with the Magnificent Seven. Yeah, I've never seen it. What about it was so important to you?
I think it's because Kurosawa is just one of those filmmakers that knows how to tell a story, and he learned his craft by literally watching pretty much John Ford films, which is why he created the Seven Samurai. But he wanted to celebrate his culture. And I think it's just a cultural celebration of all that stuff. The story is very Eastern. I'm going to steal a line from Bob Iger here. It's very Eastern, but distinctly Japanese. The story is. And it's that whole, like I said, everybody has seen a version of the Seven Samurai, even though they don't know it. So if you've either seen Seven Samurai, Magnificent Seven, or A Bug's Life is literally Seven Samurai.
You were telling me that earlier, yeah.
So that's that story of the heroes coming to help and all that stuff. And my dad made me watch it once, and it just was a big influence on me with storytelling, the art of storytelling, how you can make cultural representation and make it interesting for people that aren't part of that culture. Yeah, that was a big one. And Kurosawa did that in all his films. Rashomon. There's one that was his experimental film was called Dreams, where it was literally a vignettes of dreams that he had, and he just made them into short films. And there's one that he had a dream where he met Van Gogh, and Scorsese plays Van Gogh in the movie.
Really?
Yeah. It's really very experimental. So you watch it, you're like, this is kind of weird, but you got to realize this is someone's dreams that they're having, and it's just crazy. It's great.
Sounds like this one. I watched a clip of it earlier today, actually, on a Fire Stick. David Lynch is like interviewing a monkey that's like a murder suspect, and it sounds it's like a 17-minute short he did. Okay. And I forgot what it's called, but it seems very experimental, just David Lynch being David Lynch. Yeah. Like a dream sequence, and he's just talking to a monkey who, it looks like they superimposed someone's mouth on, and the monkey's talking back. Yeah. I thought when I heard about it originally that it was just going to be a monkey sitting there, and it's David Lynch having a conversation.
I mean, I wouldn't put that past
exactly.
David Lynch.
That's what I thought. So I saw that, and I was like, what? The monkey's talking too? This is going to be great. But no, that sounds very similar to... Yeah. I get it. No, that's wonderful. I have never seen The Seven Samurai or any of his films that I am aware of.
You haven't seen any Kurosawa films?
I don't think I have, and that's why I'm like, I need to get on this.
Yeah, Rashomon especially
I
Rashomon.
was gonna say I've seen Rashomon and I've seen Ron.
Yes.
And both of them are fantastic. He's just a fantastic.
He's on the Criterion, not
Yes.
just with Seven Samurai, but with
Rashomon.
Yeah. I've heard the name, so I need to get on that. I really
very
do.
good.
How am I hosting a movie show and I'm watching these movies? Come on, Chris, get together. Your next one, though, I actually just watched the other day for like the umpteenth time because Christopher Nolan is one of my favorites. Dunkirk.
Yes.
And that movie was hell yeah.
Yeah. Very much, again, like Dad being a history teacher, I'm a student of history as well.
Oh, yeah.
And the story of Dunkirk is just incredible how they pulled that off. Sometimes there's victory in a retreat. And we kind of did the same thing in the Korean War with the Chosin Reservoir, where the Marines did a retreat as well, and it was a successful retreat. But that was where the war looked the bleakest. The Germans had basically taken over everything. England was next, and Nolan's and it was. I even said it to a friend of mine that Nolan's doing a movie about history, so he can't make this weird. And then it's nonlinear. So it's like
it's almost like he knew that, and he's like, "How do I put my own touch on?"
Yeah, exactly. And it was oh my gosh, it blew my mind when I watched it. The trailer, I was anxiety. Hans Zimmer with that the elevated score that he was doing,
the watch ticking going through.
I can't remember what the scale was called, but it's an actual musical scale where it's supposed to sound like it's going some point, but it doesn't. It just keeps rising.
Yeah,
and it doesn't stop, and it's just like that tension. Mm-hmm. How those soldiers felt when I watched like documentaries about World War II, and how terrified the soldiers were with Stuka's dive bombing them.
Yeah.
And you didn't really you go, okay, it had the siren, and they kind of play the siren in the documentary, but then you watched it in the movie and you saw the terror on their faces. Now you're feeling it like, oh my god.
Midway that came out recently wasn't the best war film.
Yeah,
I was appreciative that it was a Pearl Harbor movie that wasn't made into a romance.
Yes.
Yeah, they're looking at you, Ben Affleck. But the dive bombing scenes in that movie were intense. Like you could see the look on their faces, like there was dread, pure dread, and I did appreciate that about that film. And back to Dunkirk, the score that Hans Zimmer did was incredibly tense.
Yeah,
and on the edge of your seat because they were too. You know, they're flying and. They don't know if they're gonna, the dive bombers. Of course, they're diving to,
they're gonna kill everybody.
And then, if they're not lucky, they could kill themselves too with the bomb. It was,
yeah. And I'm a soundtrack guy, like you were saying.
Yeah,
really, your first episode, I'm in that as well. So yeah, the score, the visuals,
everybody being stuck at that one spot, and they're like, we can't get out. Yeah. If we go in, we're stuck. If we go out, we're stuck here at sea.
I think the big thing I liked about it is it didn't feel like a movie. It felt like I was dropped in the middle of this thing actually happening.
I felt like I was watching events as they took place.
Yeah, as they happened. Yeah,
and I appreciated that, and it was definitely due to the IMAX format that Nolan is famous for using. He doesn't do the gimmicks of 3D, which in some instances it works.
Yeah,
like Alita Battle Angel was great in 3D. Those blockbuster like Avengers and stuff, they're great for that kind of spectrum.
Yeah.
But when you're watching something like Nolan's work, you're not watching it for depth. I mean, the depth is there on a 2D plane for him.
Yeah,
you're watching it for the wide scope of how. Like, you're surrounded by the immersion of his picture. Yeah.
He's taking the widescreen format and using it to its full potential.
It really is.
Yeah.
Like, on my TV, when you watch it, I have a 55-inch flat screen. So it's not the big ones. Like, there's like 80 and 90-inch TVs nowadays. It's still, like, for a 55-inch, when you're doing the wide shots for the dogfights and Tom Hardy's, I was like, this is incredible. Yeah. And the color... The color was so well done. I love it. I love it so much.
Everything about it was fantastic.
Fantastic film. That's another 10 minutes spent on Dunkirk. We're going to be talking for 2 hours here. I'm kidding. Best Years of Our Lives. I haven't seen that one. Tell me about that one.
So the Best Years of Our Lives is William Wyler, one of the really famous directors back in Golden Age. And it's a war movie, but it's what happens after the war. Mm-hmm. It's after we win World War II, and it follows a story of 3 men going back to civilian life and realizing civilian life isn't what it was. You follow an officer, a non-commissioned officer, was a non-com, and then a sailor. And the sailor in the movie actually lost both his hands. So he has to live with the hooks. And now he has to live with his life of he had a girl back home. She's not going to want to be with him because he doesn't have hands. And the funny thing is the officer is the guy that doesn't have a job and has a terrible wife. Where the guy that was the enlisted man is the lawyer and has it turns everything on its head. Where you would think as an officer you would have this life, but you don't. And so it's like dealing with after effects of war. So it's one of those movies where it's like, wow, this is after the glory. What happens?
It seems so misplaced in real life, but these things are actually happening.
They're actually happening. Yeah. And so that's where the reference. I think personally the best years of our lives for some of them was not after, it was during because
they felt like they were a part of it. And then exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that does sound like something I need to watch. And of course, your number 5 is Cinema Paradiso, which you actually recommended to me a long time ago, and I'm horrible because I still haven't watched it. But I love the idea that it's a filmmaker who's looking back on his earlier years of coming and falling in love with film.
Yeah, it's coming of age story of a kid. He hangs out with a guy that runs a projection.
Yeah,
and his one of the things that he remembers the most was these first run movies or third run movies from Hollywood or whatever would come, and the town priest would sit in the movie theater and censor every film that was coming in. So any kiss, anything that showed anything that was bad, he would raise his hand and the projectionist would cut that scene out of the movie. And you never really understood what was going on with those cuts because they were literally cutting those things out of the movie.
Yeah.
And then he goes on and lives his life. The projectionist ends up dying in a fire, and he becomes a filmmaker himself. He comes back to his hometown, and the wife tells him he left this for you, and it's a film reel. And so, spoilers, sorry. But at the end of the film, and there's a reason I asked you to watch it because I thought about doing something similar for a tribute to Movie Red when it closed, was he takes the reel of the film and he plays it. And when he sits there, what he realizes what it is, it's literally all the cut moments that he cut out. It was a timeline of him spending time with him. Oh. And he's watching this montage, and there's the music from, I can never say his name right, but you're a big fan of him, Ennio
Morricone?
Yeah. He did the theme for it, the love theme. Oh. And that theme is playing as it's going, and the dude starts crying, and I start crying. This is like...
I'm crying.
It's one of the most beautiful segments of a movie I've ever seen in my life.
Have you seen it, Jesse?
I had actually never heard of this. Like, I had heard of all of the other films that, just from the little bit of time that I've been sitting here. Yeah. No, I had not.
It's an influence on me just because it's my love of movies is what it felt like.
Well, folks, we're going to end the episode there. We're going to go watch Cinema Paradiso. I don't know what you guys are doing. You're getting a short podcast episode. No, I'm just kidding. I want to sit down and watch that right now. You sold me, man. I had talked to you about it previously via text, I think. You were like recommending to me. Now that you're like here and tell me, I'm like, I'm watching this yesterday.
It's fantastic.
Oh my god! I wonder if that's on anything. I can save it to my watch list. So, oh man. Now I'm in. I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, oh, it's so good. It's so good.
It's such a good.
And how have I missed this? It came out in '88, I think. And
won Best Picture for Best Foreign Film.
Yep. Oh, Best Foreign Film.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Because it's an Italian film, so it's all in Italian.
Oh yes, I am totally in.
Psst. Hey you. Yeah, I'm talking to you, listening to the great movie radio show starring Chris Schneider. I don't want anybody to get hurt, so don't go moving around until this Movie Talk podcast comes back. Capiche?
Warning. Remain on this podcast. The advertisement you are experiencing is extremely dangerous. Proceed with caution.
The heat's on, see? Which means it's time for Chris Schneider, host of the Great Movie Radio Show, to get back to work. I gotta lay low myself. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss another episode of this Movie Talk podcast. Do it, or else, if you know what I mean.
So those I could see why that last one definitely inspired you because, like you said, you wanted to make the reel for Movie Ride or something similar. And I remember different events, filming for like the Oscar events we would do at the park, and there was this one time Dave Fesky was filming a couple of friends. Actually, Gabe was one of them. They were doing a buddy cop comedy with Gabe and I forgot his name. One was it was Gabe and Corey. Yeah, they were doing the One was Gangster, and one was Bandit, and it was like a buddy cop comedy.
Oh, yeah.
We were going through all the lands, and I was like helping them with the stuff. And just watching them do that, and I would think about all the times to where the ride was closed or for 101.
Yeah.
We just had
Those were the best times.
It was, yeah. I have a photo with the extra alien that was in finale, where someone took like a flashlight, and it looks like a strobe effect. If you could have a strobe effect in a standalone photo, it looks like that. And it's me with the alien behind, like, "Argh." And just those moments that we cherished of the ride is what this show is about. This is why we're sitting here talking, and I'm having you guys on, and other riders are coming soon, and everyone's been coming because we have just cherished the moments that this ride, even when the ride was going and we're taking people into it, even when it was off, and we could just walk the track and look at these moments and just look at the detail and
even in its most stressful times.
Yeah,
those are the moments that made it worth it.
They were, and I talked about that last episode with Tracy. I had anxiety, and that's why I ultimately left, was the anxiety of the ride and what it took a toll on me. But I would cherish those quiet moments of just riding. Like if we were closing up for the night, and I was riding around, dead show around, I would just ride around, and I would just look at all the details, and I miss those days sometimes because I felt like I was in a movie.
Yeah,
and it was like what you were saying with the shorts, with the dreams. I felt like each moment was like a dream that I was in, and nothing can ever
nothing
replace that, and not even a railroad. So we're going to that was some shade. Do you got an umbrella?
Trees are shady.
Trees are shady. Yeah. Anywho, so we're gonna dive into your films and film scores and or composers, and there's some. Oh yes.
I couldn't pick a composers because I love all the composers, but I feel like the soundtracks. Specific soundtracks are the stories themselves.
Your first one is the great John Williams and his Superman, the movie soundtrack that no one can replace John Williams.
No.
Ever. So what about Superman?
So that was off the heels of Star Wars. So that was 78. So he's having a heck of a 70s because there was Jaws, and then there was that, and then there was Superman the movie.
He's had a heck of a life
in general. Yeah.
John,
but it was
that come down.
I was gonna say, wasn't this Rise of Skywalker nomination his 25th Academy Award nomination?
5, I think.
What a legend, man.
So he's that soundtrack. There's a really nice story about in the making of Superman the movie. Richard Donner talks about when they're scoring the film. And John Williams talks about all these things of like it's the hero's theme, it's all this stuff, but it's the score doesn't take itself seriously in the way that the movie didn't take itself seriously. So Richard Donner says that there's a moment in the scoring session when they're starting to build up with that dun 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 whatever, and he's like, if you listen carefully, the music literally says the word, and it does, and that's what blew my mind. It was John Williams did that when the word Superman shows up on the screen, you hear dun dun dun. It's literally Superman.
Yep.
And you hear it, and the rest of the score in general, like the love themes and everything about it, is so John Williams, and it's not Star Wars. That's what I loved about it the most, because it was very, very much that. So I loved, especially the prelude and the title march is my favorite track of that soundtrack.
He has always brought these different themes to us.
Yeah.
That you can tell it's John Williams, but everything is different that he's done. Everything. Harry Potter, Jaws, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List. Did you do Schindler's List? I was going to say he did Schindler's List. I haven't watched it, but I've heard Saving Private Ryan. He has done so many different...
He did the music for The Patriot.
Exactly. So there's just so many different... He's been in so many different worlds.
Yeah.
And he has musically created and balanced those worlds for us.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that man can't do.
Nope.
Like, he could take a can of SpaghettiOs and write a score about it, and we would give him an Oscar for it.
Yep.
Seriously.
Imagine if he ever did, like, a commercial. Like,
oh my God.
They should do that for the Super Bowl.
Well, technically, I was going to say the E.T. commercial that came through around Christmas. Tracy brought it up.
Yeah.
I wondered, did they borrow... Because he did E.T., right?
He did E.T., yeah.
E.T., yeah.
He won an Oscar for that one.
He won an Oscar for that one. I'm just thinking of everything. So I want to say they borrowed music from the movie for that commercial.
Yeah.
Which is probably why I liked it so much. Because it was John Williams and E.T. and nostalgia and...
Did that count as a commercial, or was it almost more like a short film? I mean, it did both, but to me, I almost threw it into short film territory.
Well, it was an ad for a Volkswagen, I think. So we'll call it a commercial.
Yeah.
Or was it AT&T? Was it like a TV, like Direct TV, or was it for Volkswagen? I thought it was Volkswagen.
I thought it was a car commercial myself.
I thought it was too. I could be wrong. Hey, Dexter. Dexter's back. He just wants to be a part of this. He loves John Williams too. Oh, don't bonk your head on the table. He's gonna come invade us like E.T. So your second one is Angels and Demons, which I haven't seen, but I know about it. Tom Hanks and Ron Howard directing. Yeah. I hear it's a great film. I haven't seen it, but the composer behind Angels and Demons is someone we've talked about probably on every episode, and that's Hans Zimmer, because he is probably just as legendary as John Williams is. If there was, I guess you would say, second best to John Williams, it would be
very much Hans Zimmer. That one is more on my list for. It was a script I was writing while I was in college, which was very much in the vein of that kind of thing. I describe it. One of the things you learned in screenwriting in film school was how you pitch movies to people, and sometimes you pitch them in saying it's this movie meets this movie, and this is what happens. So the film that I pitched was 24 meets Angels and Demons. If you've ever seen the television show 24. And it's just a murder mystery, international intrigue, espionage, all the stuff's going on. And while I was writing that screenplay for my class, I was like, how do I when I write, I listen to music, and that's what helps me write. I get a lot of my ideas from writing. Scenes in movies, scenes in my head come from music. So I popped on Angels and Demons soundtrack and just went away, and I was writing with that playing along with me. So that's where that came from. That's why it's one of my favorites. Probably my most. It's the most listened to one on my thing because I was cycling through that soundtrack as I was writing. So
very inspirational to where you were going with your story.
Yeah,
it took you to the places musically you wanted to go to on paper.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
Hans Zimmer's, like I said, there are so many wonderful composers out there, but if you had to chart them, I would say John Williams would be the top, and Hans Zimmer would definitely be right behind him. Alien is your third, Glory is your fourth, and Gettysburg is your fifth. You really like the war movies.
Yes.
I'm all about them too.
Jerry Goldsmith, James Horner.
Yep. They're incredible composers. I miss James Horner so much because he did The Rocketeer, which is my favorite movie of all time. And you can't find that on any streaming service.
Isn't it on Disney Plus?
Well, the movie, yes. I'm talking the score.
Soundtrack,
yes.
You can't find the score on Spotify. It's not on Amazon Music. It's nowhere. And if you want to listen to it, you got to buy a CD. And the CD's like $100. Yeah. So, I mean, you can find it on YouTube.
Yeah.
But you can find it track by track on YouTube and then leave your phone open or something. So if I'm in the car and I want to listen to the Rocketeer soundtrack, I have to look like a dweeb with my phone. So it's hard to find, and I love that score so much because it gave this really great adventure tone to what Joe Johnston was doing for the film. When she said Horner, I was like, Rocketeer, yay! I had to go off.
Yeah.
But I've always loved his scores, and of course he's famous for doing anything that James Cameron's done with Aliens and Avatar and Titanic. So we're gonna jump into your directors now. And the great John Ford is your number one.
Yes.
And he did early Western films that you were, of course, you mentioned that Seven Samurai director. What's his name?
Akira Kurosawa.
Kurosawa. I can never say it right, so I was just going to sound like an idiot. Even he was inspired and influenced by John Ford. So you're a big fan of that era.
Yes.
Of film. So that's why you're a fan of him, I'm assuming.
Yes. And I'm also, I'm a big John Wayne fan. My family grew up on John Wayne. We're very, very pro-American. My family is.
Yeah.
So John Ford and John Wayne movies are distinctly American. A lot of his even his dramas that he did, like The Quiet Man, which is a drama, I would say it was more like kind of like a rom-com, an early rom-com. It's still one of those ones where, because of The Quiet Man, I want to go to Ireland because it was shot on location in Ireland because he was Irish and everything.
Oh, okay.
The Calvary trilogy that he did with Fort Apache, Rio Lobo, I think it is, and She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. She Wore a Yellow Ribbon was made because he wanted to show off he could make a movie in Technicolor. And it's just one of those movies. It's a really great story, and it's again the American West and moving forward. And he made a big part of My State famous with Monument Valley when he used it to shoot The Searchers and Stagecoach and all that stuff. So it's just very influenced by his films.
He did The Searchers, didn't he?
Yes,
I am
he did.
so stupid. I forgot about that. Oh man,
But he made John Wayne a star, and that was like the big thing.
Yeah,
and he was one of the greatest American directors, I think.
See, I haven't touched a lot into the classics as much as I should, and so that's why when you said that, I was like, he did do that, didn't he? I never put the name together, and so I'll admit when I don't know something. Number 2 is somebody, another one that we have mentioned on the show so many times because he deserves every accolade he can get, is Martin Scorsese. Even Bong Joon-ho last night during the Oscars encouraged a standing ovation for Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
And and you could see he was even like tearing up. Like,
I think that meant more to Marty than Marty actually winning an Oscar.
It did, because I mean, you saw the commercials during the. Dexter is playing with his bed over there. Okay. He is all about inspiring the next generation of filmmakers, and I think when I saw the commercial and then that moment happened, it's almost like the Oscars were rigged. Don't know if that's true or not, but it's almost like it was just set up. We're going to put this there, and then he's going to cue Marty, and then everyone at home is going to be like, "Oh, how did that work?" And but it just fell into play. The commercial, and then you saw the tears in his eyes and how grateful he was. He was shaking his hands around like, thank you. Like, he understands that without the communication with his peers and everyone he's worked with and everyone in the industry, even if he hasn't worked with them, that he couldn't be where he was without them.
Correct.
And I think he is probably one of the most pure people in cinema.
He, like you said, he's a custodian of the art. And he understands that responsibility, so he's just trying to pass that on to the next generation of filmmakers.
You could see in his eyes he appreciated everything that Jonu was saying about him. Alfonso Cuarón, I think I said that right.
Yep.
He has done some wonderful films. One of them being he did Gravity, right?
Yep.
I was going to say I know he did Gravity. What about him?
He did my favorite Harry Potter movie, obviously. Prisoner of Azkaban.
Oh, that was a good one.
He added the depth of darkness to that it carried on to the last four.
The transition.
Yeah. It went from being campy kid stuff to now this is getting and then the book did the same thing. The Prisoner of Azkaban went from being campy, went away from the campiness, and now people are going to die. And he started that with the tone that he set with Harry Potter. I don't think we get Wizarding World of Harry Potter if it wasn't for Prisoner of Azkaban. Personally, just the look and the texture of everything.
Yeah, the darkness he brought to like the Death Eaters and all that. That was cool.
And then Gravity.
Gravity was
that
great.
That movie blew my mind. I was one of the perks of going to film school was we got to do press screenings sometimes or go to test screenings. And the test screening that we got was for Gravity, and I went and saw that by myself. Blew my mind. It was crazy.
Yeah, I haven't seen Children of Men, which he did, and I haven't seen Roma yet, which I need to.
Yeah.
And actually, I was just looking up. I share a birthday with him, so that's kind of funny. He has done some exceptional films, and I haven't seen all of them, but he's a name you hear often in the directorial pool of great directors.
And the big one is that he's Mexican.
Exactly.
Which is part of my culture is Mexican.
Exactly.
And I tell the people I was at with my party last night as 7 of the last best directors have been non-Americans. And it started with Cuarón. And then it was Iñárritu, and then Damien, I can't remember, Chazelle, that won for La La Land.
Yeah.
Next year it was Del Toro. Mm-hmm. Last year it was Cuarón, and now it was... So...
It's incredible.
Yeah.
No, it's starting to see that the diversity, even though everyone was shamming that not all the nominees were.
Yeah, they're paying attention to the wrong diversity.
Yeah,
I feel like, and when they say that, it's because it's focused on one group and not another. That's my personal opinion. Because my group is highly ignored.
Yeah. Even
though Hispanics make up the majority of the theater movie going public in the country, so there's that.
Yeah. I really love that. Even though it was said, but I feel that maybe because we had a female composer win. I cannot say her name, but she worked on the Joker score.
Fantastic.
Hildor, I can't even say it. She was phenomenal, and so she won. And Harriet was nominated, which I didn't get to see, but I heard was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And Cynthia Erivo, that song that she sang for it was holy crap.
Yeah.
I felt like I was back at church back in the day.
I think that was the point there.
Yeah.
But it was
really
great.
Brought it
was
home.
fantastic.
It was, and I feel that stop dogging. It's there, and there might be some pool of lack of, but it could be a whole lot worse.
Yeah. It could be.
It could, and I think we're headed in the right direction. Yeah. And sometimes it takes baby steps. You can't just throw everything in the bucket at once.
Because then you throw everything at the bucket at once, you get the people that don't like the new Star Wars films.
Exactly.
Exactly.
You got to take baby steps with these things. And I think that John however you say his name, winning director and everything he won, I think that was the icing on the cake that we're headed in the right place.
I think so.
Mm-hmm. That's the first Korean film that's ever won Best Picture.
I think it's the first foreign film that's ever won Best Picture.
There might have been another one that I can't remember, but I want to say.
Yeah.
Wait, was the artist? The artist
was French. That's right.
That's the one that I was wondering about.
I was going to say that one.
But it wasn't a foreign language film.
Yeah, because John Goodman was in it and a few others.
Yeah.
But I want to say that one won Best Picture that year, and it was foreign.
Yeah.
Awesome. And of course we have Edward Zwick, which I remember him for Last Samurai.
Yes.
Is that why you have him on
there?
No,
Glory.
Yeah, that's right. He did Glory.
Glory, Defiance, Blood Diamond.
Defiance with Daniel Craig. I haven't seen that one, but I've heard good things.
And Blood Diamond. Sure. And then he did a really, really weird one called Love and Other Drugs with Jake Gyllenhaal, I think it was.
I've seen that one in Anne Hathaway.
Yeah.
He did that?
Yeah.
What?
He started out doing commercials.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But Glory was that one for that.
Oh, yeah. And then number 5, Christopher Nolan.
Yes.
Who we've praised and
up and down,
bowed and sold ourselves to many times on this show. Wait, which one for him?
For Nolan? For me is probably Dunkirk. I think that's the one that just...
Because he's done so many. And I was going down the list.
Because I like Memento, and that's a good, it was a good one to start off with, and then Batman Begins is fantastic.
Insomnia.
The Prestige, Insomnia.
Prestige.
The Prestige is...
Which is funny because you have The Illusionist as one of the films you haven't seen before, but you want to. We were talking about it earlier, and you were in the same boat I was. The reason I never saw The Illusionist is because it came around the same. The Prestige
came out,
and I was like, if I'm going to go see one that doesn't seem like it's a copy, I'm going to go see Nolan's movie. And we can't forget David Bowie as Nikola Tesla. That was so great.
Yep.
He looked oddly just like him.
And it's the Dark Knight, really. Every comic book movie has tried to reach that zenith, and I don't think anyone really has, because it's not a comic book movie; it's a crime film with comic book characters.
Exactly.
So that's the right way to do it.
I try to give Captain America: Winter Soldier that due because I feel like it's
I
feel it's a cat and mouse war thriller with comic book characters.
Yeah, very much.
It's probably the closest thing Marvel's come to the Dark Knight.
Yes, I would say that. Yeah.
Because that twist was like, that changed the MCU forever.
Yeah,
until Endgame.
Yeah.
But no, I love everything Nolan's done. I'm really looking forward to Tenet, and I can't wait to see whatever else he does in the future after that. Because every time I hear he's doing a movie, I'm like, my ticket is paid for. Yep. I am there. I don't even care what you make a film about. He can make the film about the SpaghettiOs can, and John Williams could come in and score it.
Yeah.
And I would have my ticket in advance. So, that is a great list, and I still feel stupid not knowing much about John. But that's what I'm loving about the show.
That's why it's here, right?
I'm learning and putting and piecing things together as I go with things I haven't seen. So that's what's great. And talking about things I haven't seen, you have 5 here that you haven't that you would like to, and 2 of them I have, and one of them we've talked about a bit already. Is Parasite. That movie was just so original and so wonderful, and it hit home because it was filmed with the Korean culture, but you see these things in every nation you go. Have you seen Parasite, Jesse?
I have not.
Just to give you a synopsis, it's about a family of like down on their luck family that is giving an opportunity. The son is given an opportunity to tutor this girl of a rich family. And so the son schemes to bring in another family member to help another part of this rich family. And then little by little, this down on their luck family turns into being their entire workforce, but the family doesn't know that they're a family.
Okay.
And so that alone is its own movie, if you think about it. Well, other things happen. And other things take place. And it is witty and it's eye-opening to like poor families, and what they'll do to
get where
have
they need to be.
better, and it was phenomenal. It really was. I've never seen anything like it. Honestly, the more I think about it, it deserved everything it got last night. And I was a huge goer for 1917 because again, I love horror movies just as much as you do. And I was gunning for it, and we were all ready for it. And then Parasite won Best Director, and I was like, hold on a second. I mean, yes, you deserve that, but I was, what? The Academy, you're surprising me here. Yeah. And then I was like, all right, well, he got Director, 1917, I get Best Picture, and everything will seem like we were expecting, I guess we could say. And then it didn't happen, and I was like, whoa! It was... definitely, I've said it to several friends. See this movie if you haven't. Rent it. Whatever you got to do to see it. It deserves every accolade it has won. Touch of Evil, I haven't seen either, and I don't even know what it's about.
Orson Welles. One of his other directorial credits, and it's really famous for its opening sequence because it's a one take, and it's a very long one take.
I like one.
It uses cranes and everything like that. Like it's very impressive. We watched it in one of my film classes where there's the opening sequence, and I was just like, whoa.
And of course, he's in it with Charlton Heston and Janet Leigh. Yeah. And you said you saw the sequence in
the
class.
Beginning, the opening sequence, the
it's only an hour and a half movie. That sounds pretty great. And it's a crime drama film noir.
Yes.
And that always piques my interest. I love the noir films. I might have to check that out then. And then you have The Deer Hunter, another one I haven't seen either.
De Niro, Defoe. They're playing a group of friends. Meryl Streep's in that one too. They play a group of friends that end up going to Vietnam together, and some really messed up stuff happens to them. There's a very famous scene where the Vietnamese are forcing them to play Russian roulette against each other.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's the tragedy of war.
That explains the poster.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's the tragedy of war and the times that were good and the times that were bad, and the ending's heartbreaking. Oh, Christopher Walken's in it as well.
Christopher Walken's in it. I was just looking at that.
The ending is heartbreaking. Like, I've seen the ending because my dad was watching it once, and it's just, I didn't even watch the whole movie, and I was like, wow, that just made, I'm going to go cry now.
Right?
Yeah.
I have seen Jackie Brown. Tarantino is probably my favorite director of all time, just because his movies are always just they're so wacky and self-aware.
They're just entertaining.
They are, but they're written with such maturity, I feel. But also a lack of maturity all at the same time, if that makes sense. They're just so unnecessarily bloody, but also it's welcomed.
Yeah.
I love it. And they're very vulgar too, which I'm okay with. But he's one of my favorites. And Jackie Brown, I haven't seen it in a while. Pam Grier was phenomenal in that film. I need to pick it up and watch it again. And of course, The Illusionist we've mentioned because The Prestige is better. Sorry, but it's definitely one I want to see. I hear it's good.
Yeah,
and I've always liked Edward Norton.
So have I.
So there's no reason not
Have
to.
you seen The Illusionist?
No, have you?
I have.
Oh, you can shine some light in since you're the third party here.
I think that it's just funny that so many people compare the two, and obviously because they're both magician movies and came out at the same time, but one is almost like a love story, and the other is Prestige is very much not.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say it's been years since I've seen it, but The Prestige certainly keeps you on your toes, and The Illusionist, when I watched it when I was like 14 or whatever, I remember almost turning it off halfway through because I'm like, it's boring, man. It's not happening. But it's still a good film nonetheless.
Yeah. I think everyone looks at Nolan's Thriller and then they're like, no.
And then you got Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman,
of course,
Scarlett Johansson and David Bowie, like you said.
Well, yeah, but you have just the two, Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale, like on this rivalry of just my god, it was such a good movie. I've always held The Prestige in high regard.
Very, very much so.
We're going to talk about. I think I'm going to go to your favorite guilty pleasure film next. So, and I remember seeing a clip because they were showing. I think song. It was best original song, and The Bodyguard showed up with Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner. I have only seen bits and pieces of it. So why is this your favorite guilty pleasure film?
I love The Bodyguard, not just because of the music or anything, and I'm a huge Costner fan.
Yeah,
like anything Kevin Costner's in, I will watch it. Even though he's made some bad movies, like Waterworld. that's the one everybody goes to, and everybody, like a lot of people in my family hate on him. They're like, he's so monotone and boring. I'm like, no, he's not. Like, you need to watch his performance.
What did you think of Dances with Wolves?
I loved it. I loved it. I don't think it deserved anything over Goodfellas, but again, that's the era of history I love the most, is Civil War and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm kind of not to cut you off. I'm kind of I don't want to say mad at Kevin Costner, but my favorite movie, everyone knows, The Rocketeer, came out a week after Prince of Thieves did in the theaters. And Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, you have Kevin Costner and as Robin Hood as in your movie, and then you have this unknown the next week in a Disney live action film that no one knew much about. Yeah. So of course Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves really like killed Rocketeer's box office premiere. And then 2 weeks later was Terminator 2. Yeah. So I'm kind of mad at Kevin Costner.
I would say that's more of Disney's fault for not reading the lines.
I agree.
Because Costner was like one of the biggest actors in the 90s.
He was.
He was a draw.
And he had A Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams, and the one in the Western list that I gave you was Silverado, which I think is his best performance because he's not Kevin Costner. Yeah. He's this crazy, wacky kid, and you're just like, wait, Kevin Costner? Nah, it doesn't feel like it. But The Bodyguard's the same way. It's like, it's one of those things where I think Whitney Houston only did a handful of movies, but it's one of those ones where she had acting chops and she could sing. And the story altogether is just, it's in the vein of like, she's a movie star, or she's a musician, and Costner's this movie star, and then it's literally the story of the movie. I felt like it had a good kind of crime element to it with the person that's trying to kill her. Spoilers.
I know enough. I haven't seen it fully.
Yeah, but it's just enough. You sit there and watch the whole movie, and you're like, "Wow, this movie's actually not bad." And people hated on it for some reason. I don't know why. And I've told people, "I love The Bodyguard. You like that movie?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's great." I'm again Costner fan. Like, I love it.
My theater has old movie posters throughout the theater. It's like part of our theme. And we have a Bodyguard poster hanging up, and I see it all the time, and I'm like, okay. I don't hate on it. I've never seen the whole thing, but I don't hate on it. But it's definitely one of those films that I don't think it's enough appreciation.
No, I don't think so.
It probably could. Yeah. Just based on what I've seen.
Yeah.
Of course. I was going to ask you yours, but we're actually going to dive into yours in another episode.
I was going to say, I don't remember that question being on the list.
It might not be, so we'll definitely ask you yours.
Yeah.
I've revamped the list before.
Okay.
Recently, so I might ask you some that you get put on the spot. Now you get to think about it.
No, I was like, my mind's like, wait, I don't remember that question. What's going on? Ah.
Yeah, this one, and then the next one I'm actually about to ask. They're both new. A movie that you highly disliked or you were highly disappointed in. You said The Revenant, which I was very surprised about. I think I get why you were, which I'm about to find out, but I think it was a lot better than, I don't know, it's just my opinion. But why did you...
It was beautifully shot.
Yeah.
I will say that. And Iñárritu Alejandro deserved the Oscar for that because it was beautifully shot. It was great. The story was boring. I sat in that movie theater and I was bored out of my mind. And it's hard for me to get bored during a movie that I'm like, because I love movies.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand Tom Hardy when he was talking. I understood like do we
ever understand Tom Hardy when he's talking in a movie?
Like normally I can. Like, when he was, I understood him in The Dark Knight Rises. I understood him with Dunkirk when he had that thing on. Like I understood all that. This one I just couldn't. I don't know if it was the false teeth or whatever he was wearing. And then it was just 2.5 hours of Leo grunting and crawling, and I was just like, I don't get it. I mean that's part of it is I just don't get it, but. I went into that highly expecting it to be a great film based off the trailers and everything and the reviews, and I was bored. Oh. I was bored, and I hesitate to tell you this as well, but I felt the same way with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh no!
I enjoyed it for what it was.
Shot in the heart.
The third act had me. Third act is fantastic, and it takes me longer to get to this point with Tarantino, but I got to this point with Tarantino in the first hour. It was get to the point.
Yeah.
And again, it was another movie that wasn't what I thought it was going to be based on the trailers. Yeah. So kind of relied on the trailers too much. But The Revenant, I still enjoyed Once Upon a Time more than I enjoyed The Revenant.
Got it. Oh, no, I loved that movie so much. So much. I still think his best is Inglourious Bastards.
Oh, yeah.
That is my favorite of his.
Django's up there too, I think.
Django would probably be my number 2. Yeah. Kill Bill would probably be 3 if you put them together.
Reservoir Dogs, though.
Yeah, Reservoir. It's so hard to rate his, honestly. It really is, because you start naming them in another one, and you're like, oh, wait, I gotta... But Inglourious Bastards has the crown, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It always will.
Yeah, it's Revenant, sorry.
Yeah. That's okay. That's okay. Well, I loved it because of the love that it portrayed. He was show... See, all of his... He always has this... his films always have a certain... resonance to them.
Yes.
And this one definitely resonated differently than his other films. Because you were just expecting, killing to happen. Like, the moment he was going to look at... Brad Pitt was going to check on George. I was ready for one of the Manson girls to pop out with a shotgun and take him out. Yeah. Didn't happen. And I was like, huh? And I think that was probably the moment where I was like, this is different, Tarantino. Yeah. This is like love letter Tarantino. Yeah. Because he's said it for years that he's getting closer to the end of his career. And I think that was him starting to wrap his career up in a film. And I equated it to a cruising movie. Yeah. And I don't like cruising movies. Understood. And I think that's where my brain was going. Yeah. And then the performances were fantastic. All that stuff was great. And I love all old Hollywood stuff. Yeah. But it was just I just was like, what's the point? Yeah. Because he was, again, the trailers are making you think it was one way and not the other. And I would listen to another reviewer saying the same thing, that they thought we were going to get more Margot Robbie being Sharon Tate, seeing her in everyday life, and it was literally a day in the life of Sharon Tate. Yeah. And it wasn't what people were thinking. So I think that was where that came from. So yeah. It was definitely a different take than Tarantino is used to taking us. And I think maybe that is why I appreciate it as much as I did. Because I'm so used to seeing him just kill. You know, but when it got there, we're on a room. But we got there. Yeah, we did. It took a second. But I loved it. I really did. I loved the stories that he created for Cliff Booth and Leo's character, because getting to watch them do the TV shows, and he wants to do series. Yeah, I saw a series with these characters, and I'm like, yes, please, I will watch those. And those two, I compared him to the new Butch Cassidy and Sundance. I think he even said that as well. Leo and Pitt together are the new Redford and Newman. Newman, yeah. It's I want them to do more movies Butch together. And Sundance, and that's why I really appreciated Brad Pitt when he mentioned Butch and Sundance last night, because that's literally what you just did. Exactly. You literally just did Butch and Sundance. I told so many people, I was like, this is Butch, this is Cassidy and Sundance, retold in a new form and in a new age, but they are. And that might have been another part of why I wanted it to go there, and it didn't go there. Yeah. And maybe, hopefully, it'll go there eventually. I mean, their lives aren't over yet. No. But Tarantino is, like you said, talking about winding down, and I'm like, why? But just make your Star Trek, and then we'll be fine. Yeah, right. He may stop directing, but I heard he might continue to write. Yeah, and that's fine. He could write them more, and I don't know. You could always see DiCaprio or Pitt behind the camera. Yeah, that would be fun. True. Yeah, Well, our last question before we finish the show, and thank you all for joining us on this just random stance chat of just movies all over the place. I love this. These episodes I love because it kind of just goes everywhere. We're around the track. We're set on something.
Yeah, we're moving.
And this is just the rest that we could discuss. Your favorite decade of film is the 90s.
Yeah.
And well, first of all, what's your favorite film of the 90s?
Ooh, that one's tough.
Uh-oh.
I don't even know.
Can I get two
I was gonna say I already know mine.
years?
Jurassic Park.
Nice.
Year I was born.
That was good. 93?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I would probably have to say that I remember watching as a kid too is probably Independence Day.
All right.
And
Oops, sorry.
I love sports movies, so probably Angels in the Outfield.
Yes, Angels in the Outfield. I just watched Rookie of the Year the other day.
Oh yeah, and that was
It's
a
on
great movie
Disney
too.
Plus. Rowan Gardner. No, I think I mentioned that on Tracy Fox because she loves baseball movies.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about that for a minute. My favorite movie in the 90s, I can give you three. The Matrix, Hackers, and Sneakers.
Okay.
Have you seen Sneakers?
I have not seen Sneakers
Robert
or
Redford,
Hackers.
1992, with Ben Kingsley, River Phoenix. Wonderful. It's like a heist movie.
Okay.
And not to give too much away, Kingsley and Redford were like friends that worked together previously, and then something happened and they fell apart. And then years later, you're seeing Redford and this team and their schemes, and they come into this situation that involves Kingsley's character, and you don't know it until it comes. And it's just kind of like cat and mouse almost themed together.
Oh, you know what? I just remembered one. So I'm gonna take that back. One of the other ones is The Shadow. Did you ever see The Shadow?
Yes, yes. Actually, my favorite guilty pleasure film is The Phantom.
Okay.
So I love though that they started to shoe in
Those 30s
those
radio
30s,
characters. Yeah.
exactly, like The Phantom, Rocketeer, The Shadow, all of those in the 90s.
I loved The Shadow when I was a
I
kid.
love that movie. It's so great. It's so bad. It's one of my favorite pinball machines too. Actually, the Shadow machine. It's a very fun machine to play. But The Phantom with Billy Zane is my favorite
Billy
guilty
Zane.
pleasure film. Billy Zane being a hero, a masked hero. Have you seen The Phantom?
I don't think I have.
It's the purple suit with the mask.
The Ring.
Toontown at Universal, because you worked at the Phantom comic book character. That he plays him. In '96, and Treat Williams is the bad guy, and great cast too. You have Chris Swanson from Buffy the Vampire Slayer the movie, and then you have Catherine Zeta-Jones is in it as well. But the Phantom is this. It's this infinite character because every era of Phantom has been passed down to the son. And so Billy Zane's character he talks to his like spiritual dad throughout this cavern. He's in like this cave on this island, and it's really hard for me to explain. I got put on the spot with this, but he grew up in New York, and then he went to live in this island where his dad used to be this protector of this island. And anyways, this New York henchman goon played by Treat Williams is looking for these skulls, and so it feels very Indiana Jones-ish almost, which I think might be why a lot of people were not receptive to it, because
Probably.
it felt more Indiana Jones-ish than like radio show hero.
Yeah.
But that was the tone of the show back in the comic strips that they would do, and it was just such a really cool story. And it was so bad. It wasn't bad, but it was 1996 when they were trying to do more CG effects.
Yeah.
So there was a few shots that were bad, but the one-liners were bad too. But I loved it because you saw how much love was put into it.
Yeah.
And just like The Rocketeer, how much love was put into that movie. It was so underrated, and I appreciate The Phantom probably because as much as I love The Rocketeer, I love that era of noir.
That's the one reboot I want them to get.
Rocketeer.
Give me that and give me a Shadow.
Shadow?
The Shadow. I think, especially with technology the way it is, I think the Shadow would do well, even as a TV show.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like something like that. But
have Alec Baldwin come back and be the villain this time.
Or he could be the master that teaches them
Yes,
a new
that
one.
would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, but the 90s, I think the 90s too is when they actually were more popular films were winning Best Picture during that time.
Yeah.
And that we went away from that in the early 2000s and started doing more of the art house prestige things. And
they did some great movies. I mean, I loved Ben Stiller's Reality Bites was a great film in the 90s growing up. Clerks, Rocketeer. I could go on. Of course, Episode 1, Star Wars got reintroduced in '99, right before the turn.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, I was 14 and I saw it probably 14 times in the theater.
I loved it.
And now I watch it, I'm like, it's classic George Lucas. It's not what everyone wanted from Star Wars, but it's bad, but it was definitely George Lucas.
It's George, at least as he can say that.
No, if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have Ewan McGregor's turn as Obi-Wan Kenobi, which we were talking earlier as your favorite version. So
favorite character in general.
And
that whole Star Wars saga.
We wouldn't have a lot of things if it wasn't for as much, love or hate the prequels. There's a lot of things that people accept and love in the Star Wars universe.
Probably wouldn't have the Clone Wars series that we have either if it wasn't for Attack of the Clones being a thing. And I love the Clone Wars era. That's probably my favorite era in the Star Wars lore too. Is that time frame.
I just think we should have got a different Anakin Skywalker.
I don't know if it's so much Hayden Christensen versus just George Lucas's directing.
I think it's a combination of Hayden Christensen and George Lucas's
Jumper was
writing.
bad.
Yeah, there's a reason why he's not making movies anymore.
Yeah.
I just think, like my dad said it best because my dad grew up in the 70s and the 80s and whatnot, and so he saw Star Wars when it came out. And he remembered telling me he was at this movie theater in Phoenix called the Cine Capri, and it was this huge screen. And they were sitting there watching Star Wars, and that ship came overhead, and he said literally everybody in the theater ducked. Like there was a ship coming overhead because of the sound and everything.
Yeah.
And then the movie started, and you're like, what is going on? And then Vader walks through the doors, and he's like, there's this big, imposing dude. And then he's like, now I'm watching the prequels, and it's this whiny little brat.
Yeah.
That's not Darth Vader. Like, and I'm like, it's leading up to Vader, but it's still, you would have thought Anakin would have been more arrogant.
I feel that Adam Driver portrayed more of the anger in Kylo Ren and that character, and I think that's what Lucas was trying to get out of Hayden Christensen as becoming Vader.
Yeah.
He couldn't get it.
Yeah, I think Kylo Ren is more of an Anakin Skywalker than Hayden Christensen.
Agreed.
Is Anakin Skywalker.
So if we could do a redo, we could have Adam Driver become Darth Vader, and I would be okay with
Yeah.
that. And my wife probably listening to this right now is, if she's in the car driving, she's probably like, yes. She loves Adam Driver so much. So hearing me say this is probably making her day. So you're welcome, babe. No, I feel that, and that's why I loved in the newer movies. I loved Kylo Ren the most because his anger, he had a little bit of the whiny tone, just a little bit, because he was just like, I'm gonna finish what you started, and he said he was emo, he was so emo, but Anakin Skywalker was just a brat.
Yeah.
Whereas he
was just a brat.
He was a brat and entitled. Adam Driver as Kylo Ren was just entitled.
Yes.
He wasn't so much of a brat. He was just entitled.
Yeah.
And I think that's why that resonated better as the beginnings of a villain versus Anakin becoming Vader.
Yeah. I agree. 100%.
But I got to tell you this, Rogue One, that last 5 minutes when Vader shows up and bleep things up.
That put the fear back into Vader.
Oh
I felt
my
like
god,
scene.
that scene was like every man's pipe dream of a showcase of Darth Vader. Since seeing him fight Obi-Wan in the first one, even though the lightsabers looked a little whimsical at the time for 77, and it wasn't really a big fight, but it was the most epically drawn and written scene for Vader in a film. I mean, cartoons I think have portrayed some pretty epic things in the video games and all the books.
Comics have,
and so we've never on the big screen seen that intensity in Vader.
You never really saw Vader really in, and I feel even though it's like literally moments before New Hope starts or Star Wars, you never really saw Vader in his prime in the suit,
right?
Because the fighting hadn't evolved at that point. Because there's actually a documentary done on like kendo and the lightsaber fights, and how in the first film he was like, these are extremely heavy, like they're like broadswords, which is why they fight the way they do. And then they do an Empire, and he's like, well, we need to pick this up a little bit because it's more intense now. That's Lucas's favorite phrase is faster and more intense.
Oh
and then we got the prequels in there, so all over the place. So I think that was a perfect middle between with Rogue One, that scene there.
It really provided everything we've wanted to see in Vader
Yep.
in one sequence. And
Yep.
I remember Giacchino's score happening, and like you just hear like the inevitable happening, and it gets quiet for a second, and then just the red lights up, and you're like, yes! And then the score, and just the get us out of here! The fear and God in them, Jesus, that was. I want to watch it right now. And then we start Cinema Paradiso, right?
Right, yeah, right.
All right, everyone. So we've been rambling for a moment. Thanks for listening to the Great Movie Radio Show. Jesse, JuanCarlos, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Jesse, we're going to go around the track with you next round.
Yeah.
And then we're going to dive into these things. JuanCarlos, if you're still here, maybe you're talking, I don't know. We'll find out. But thanks for listening, and we thank you for being a part of this. We appreciate it. We'll see you soon on the Great Movie Radio Show.
The Great Movie Radio Show is recorded in Orlando, Florida. You can visit our website at www.thegmrshow.com. Art direction and logo design provided by Mr. Bayless. Voiceover and intro work provided by Dave Fesky and Joe Erickson. You can find our podcast on multiple platforms such as Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and many more. Music provided by the YouTube Audio Library. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. Just search The Great Movie Radio Show or The GMR Show. This has been The Great Movie Radio Show. We hope you enjoy your day, and we'll see you at the movies. The stuff dreams are made of. Goodbye, everyone.
You have been listening to a GMR radio production.